and welcome back. I want to make another start on working on my Wild Hedgerows journal. So I'm going to be showing you what I'm going to be doing with this particular page later on in the video. But the first thing that I want to cover is how I made the journal cover, which I'm going to show you this one. Now this is a different version that I made. This was taken from some wallpaper, and it had the bunnies / hares on one part, and then the next part it had the birds on it. So that was like one repeat of the wallpaper. So in the latest kit that I sent out from the pop-up shop, they got some of this wallpaper in their pack. All right, so I'm going to show you how I made this particular cover. Let me just take my signatures out for a minute. So it's also lined with the wallpaper as well, and it's got pockets on the inside too. So it's really simple. So let's get started. So this is the piece of the wallpaper that I'm going to be using with the two birds on, so that you can see the full width of the paper there. Okay, and it's really great, this wallpaper, because it looks like paper pieces that have been cut out and then stuck onto a background. So I think it's really, really clever. Now you will need to check, if you bought one of the packs, you will need to check the width of this paper, because I cut them by hand very haphazardly, and so the widths might be different. Now this particular piece is just about 8 3/4 inches wide. Okay, now my journal cover that I made originally is 8 1/2 inches wide. So this cover needs to be fractionally smaller, because I need to fold in the top and the bottom of this paper onto the cover piece of card. So I've cut my paper accordingly to this size piece of wallpaper. And what I did was I used one of the Amazon A3 folders, as you can see there. And this is the size that I cut it down to, relating to the wallpaper piece of paper that I've got. So I've cut it down to 12 3/4 inches wide and 8 inches deep. All right, and then I've scored it at the halfway point. So half of 12 is 6. That's easy enough to do. Now the 3/4 bit, if we count to the 3/4 bit, there's 6 notches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and half of 6 is 3. So 1, 2, 3 will be the halfway point, and then I scored down there. So I scored it at 6 3/8. Am I in shot? Yes, I am. Okay, so that is going to be the fold for my cover. All right. Then I cut another piece of wallpaper, because I've got lots of wallpaper, and this is really lovely and shiny, and it's got gold in it and all sorts, so it's very mottled. So I cut this fractionally smaller than the piece of card. So I cut this piece to 12 1/2 by 7 3/4. So I took 1/4 inch off each of those two measurements, and that's the size that I cut the paper to, and that is the piece that will sit inside the front cover. Okay, right, next bit. I know that I want the two birds, one on the front and one on the back cover. So sort of guesstimating, I could measure between the distance between the two farthest points of the bird is round about here. So I've just sat my piece of card on top, and I'm just going to slide it up. Might need to shift it across a little, because if you notice, the beak of the bird is going to be sat right near the edge. So it's going to be about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very lightly fold over that, and very lightly fold over this side. Okay, so now I've got a rough idea where that needs to go, and then I'm going to sit this on the back side and using those crease marks that I lightly made, I'm just going to fold that over like that, and then fold this one over like that. Okay, I'm not using my bone folder just yet. Okay, and I can see that I've got enough. You see how wonkily I cut it, look. So I've got a real narrow bit there and a wide bit there. So if I move that up just a touch, and then I'm going to fold over that edge up there. And do the same on the bottom. And you can see I'm just wiping my fingers over the paper to pull it over. Okay. So let's turn this the right way round. Just check, got my birds the right way up. Okay. And that will sit like that. That will fold over like that. That will fold over like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue on this side by placing it around the four sides. Across the middle. Now the one area that I need to pay particular attention to with the glue is where this bit is folded. So I'm going to make sure that I put plenty of glue on that bit, because that's the bit where the paper can quite easily lift off. So as you can see now, I've got plenty of glue down where that centre fold is. And then I'm going to flip it over, line it up with my fold marks, and glue that in place. Now as you can see, I've got this excess bit here, and that's what I'm going to use as the pocket on this side. So I need about the same amount on this because I've got an excess amount on this side. So let me just do a quick, so that's about 6 centimetres. 6 centimetres. Get a pencil, start that. I'm going to cut that excess off. So now I've got sort of the same on both sides. Right. Now this bit where I folded it down at the top, I'm going to continue that fold right the way to the edge of the paper. And the same on this side. There. Okay, so it's folded over right the way to the edge. Open that back out. Now I'm going to place glue all the way along the whole width of the wallpaper. And fold that edge over. So the middle part will be stuck to the envelope, and the end part will be stuck to the back of the wallpaper. And I'm going to put some clips on. To just help that out. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing with the bottom, so I'll be back in a bit. That's those two edges now stuck down the top and the bottom. So if I turn it round to the front, you can see I've got my birds there. Those will fold in and they're going to sit nicely on the front of the cover. But going to the back again, I'm going to get the next piece of wallpaper, and that is going to sit on top. It doesn't matter that it doesn't extend right the way to the very edge of the card. What's important is that it covers over the top of the seam, top and bottom. So we're going to put some glue on the back of that. Now again, it is important to get this centre fold again here. So I'm going to put plenty of glue across that middle bit there. Not right to the top, not right to the bottom. And then I can flip that over. And of course, if you've got directional paper, make sure that you've got it the right way up, because there's going to be nothing worse than you having it the wrong way up, flipping your book over and then finding that you've put it on the wrong way round. Okay, so that is going to sit there. Now it's at this point everyone gets tempted to fold this out up. Don't do it. Wait for that glue to completely dry. Okay, so that's the inside now lined. And then what I'm going to do is put some glue on this edge up here, if it'll come out the bottle. There we go. And at the bottom. Flip that over. And that will form the pocket on each of the ends. Again, I'm just going to clip those in place until that glue is dried. I don't like to squidge it at this stage because it's quite easy for that glue to squidge out. So I'll wait for the glue to go off a little and then I'll press it with a bone folder. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. And fold that in. And again, just clip it top and bottom. And that's my cover covered. So that will be the front, that will be the inside, and then I've got these two pockets here and here. We'll come back to this in a minute once the glue's dried. Whilst I'm waiting for the cover to dry, I'm going to work on this page in the kit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this bit off here, because what I'm about to do, I don't want to get it on this part of the design. Now, when you buy a digital kit, you know, don't just see it for what it is, all right? I could decorate this up because it's looking a little bit on the plain side, but I can decorate this up and make it something really pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stamps, and I've got my Entomology Stampers Anonymous kit, and I'm going to use the text off there. I think I might use the bee or I might use the ladybird. We'll see how it goes. And the other one that I've got is my Field Notes stamp by Stampers Anonymous, and as you can see, I've already got a couple of bits out that I'm sort of thinking about. I'm also thinking about that one, so we might get that one out as well. I'm going to cut off roughly some of the excess. I'm not cutting it out properly just yet, just cutting off the excess. Because then what I want to do is I want to use some of this painter's paper, which is really nice and thin, and I want to glue it on the back. In fact, I'm just going to trim up to that edge so I know where I want it to go up to. Let me move that out of the way, because then you can see what I'm doing. So I want it on that top flap. I don't want it on the bottom flat bit. I've got that now sort of lined, and then I can cut it out properly. And then I'm going to fold it. And it now means that when this closes up, it's all fully lined so that it's not just bare white paper. Now I'm going to ink up all the edges. And now I can glue it together. Got my little envelope there. Then I thought about again using the painter's paper and using this specimen label. So I'm going to use the archival ink black on this. Stamp that on there. And then just rip out around the edge. Do it that way. I was thinking of gluing that on the front there, but just on its own looks a little bit bland. So I'll have to add in some of this cheesecloth on there. A little bit there. Bits of that. And I've got these little tiny leaves. I've got two little leaves coming out of there. So that's what's going to go on the front. But on the back I want to do a little bit of stamping, so I'll do that first. I'm going to use the text stamp from the entomology kit. I'm using my archival ink coffee. That's a little bit on the other side. And then this one's also from the field notes, and I've just got a little scrap of one of the really useful papers. and I've folded it in half so that the back will then be decorated as well. Okay. I'm going to cut them into 2 pieces. And that will sit on there. So that's now on the back. To add a bit of texture, I'm just going to put a staple in there. And then stick that onto there. Put a little bit of glue on the back of the leaves. I add another one down here. Let's do the number. There we go. Then I can cut out this little card, stick it onto the back of some coffee dyed paper, add extra coffee dyed papers to it to make it into like a little notebook, and then I can put that inside of the envelope. And then that will be that one done and dusted. As I say, I might staple some coffee dyed papers to the back, as well as putting some paper on the back of this as well to give it a little bit more strength. I'll tell you the other thing I might do. Is just add some faux stitching lines. That just finishes it off. And then that will go in there. So there we have it. I forgot to mention, I'll probably end up doing something similar with the envelopes out of the kit as well. But you'll see that when it comes to looking at the video of the flip through. Okay, so let's have a look at this cover. I want my bone folder out. So this is now dried. Now what you need to remember is that this bit, although we glued it here, it can still lift up off of the card, and because this has got the shorter distance to go, it'll probably bunch up a little bit, and the outside edge, this outside fold, has got further to go, so you need to be more careful about this bit on the outside because it can actually rip. Now I have just sort of lightly dinked it, folded it very, very slightly so that I can run my bone folder down that edge. So as you can see, I'm only lifting this off slightly. So that's pushing that down into the groove. Okay, and then fold it a little bit more, a little bit at a time, and I'm watching this outside edge so that it doesn't rip. So I'm only doing it a little bit at a time to stretch the paper around that curve. So I'm being quite gentle with it. And then I'll just lightly run my bone folder over there and on the back side, not pressing down too hard. Alright, so it's now sort of rounded that corner. Then have a look at the inside again and just make sure that it hasn't bunched up. And this is why you need to leave it to dry thoroughly. So as you can see, I've got the bird on the front here, I've got the bird on the back on this one, and I've got my two pockets on the inside. On my original cover, you might have noticed that I'm actually stitching it. So if I try and show you up close, so you can see that I'm over sewing the edge. I'll show you the front side. Okay, so I've got all these holes here, and basically all I'm doing is I'm coming up through a hole, I'm taking it over the top, and then I'm putting it through the next hole and pulling it through. Taking it over the top, putting it through the next hole and pulling it through. Over the top, next hole, pulling it through. Now when I come to the end of my thread, what I might do is I might just attach another piece of thread by knotting the two pieces together right next to the cover edge, to give it a little bit of that handmade vintage kind of look. But the other thing that you can do is you can feed the needle and thread underneath the previous stitches. I'm not going to show you now because I'll end up splitting my thread because I haven't got my right glasses on, but I would feed it underneath sort of 4 or 5 of those stitches, which is what I've done here, is I've just fed it through some of the stitches. Now how did I get the holes into the cover? Basically what I did was I took my thread out of my sewing machine, both the bobbin and the top thread, and I just run it through the sewing machine at the longest straight stitch length that I've got on my machine, and I just stitched, literally stitched but not stitched because there's no thread in it, to poke the holes into the card. Now it becomes a little bit more difficult at the corners because obviously there's a great big bunch of paper there, but it makes it so that you get nice even holes and big enough to be able to put a needle through. And it means then that you can get nice even stitching if you want to stitch it as well. And so what I might do is I might go all the way around and then go all the way back, and then it'll form a cross stitch. But that's the basis of the basics, I should say, of how I've made my cover, how I've made the little seed pocket. So I hope that you've enjoyed the video and that you'll come back and join me for another video, and I'll see you all again really soon. Bye for now. Bye.